Welcome and welcome back if you've been here before. While we're giving everyone a chance to get settled, please feel free to share where you're joining from in the chat section. All right, thank you. Before we dive in, I'm going to cover a few housekeeping items. Don't worry about trying to take furious notes. This webinar will be recorded and a link to the video, as well as resources shared within the presentation, will be sent out within a week to the email address you used to register for today's event. Please note that the presentation has been pre-recorded, but the Q&A following the presentation will be live with one or more of our coaches. If you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A section of Big Marker, not the chat section. This really helps us keep track of questions in one place, and the Q&A section also allows you to click a thumbs up if someone else has asked a question that you're interested in, so that we can see which questions are the most popular. We probably won't be able to get to everyone's questions, but we can almost guarantee that you'll learn something. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Here's a quick overview of what we'll be covering today. First, why to volunteer, how to find volunteer opportunities, how to include volunteerism on your resume, and a live audience Q&A. Why volunteer? There are many reasons to volunteer. The most obvious is, of course, it's the right thing to do, it's helping someone, and it's doing good for other people. But there are also a bunch of other benefits to volunteering that may help your career. Volunteering in any capacity demonstrates a willingness to commit to something you are passionate about and shows that you care deeply about something other than yourself. You can see volunteering as an investment. We often are willing to pay for a service to help us find a job, for a training program, or education, and you can look at volunteering as an exchange of your time for something that may lead to a better job. If you've been wanting to test out some of the skills that are listed in your job descriptions that you've been reviewing, or you want to hone a new skill that you've been trained on, volunteering is a great place to start. Volunteers are sometimes given more freedom and responsibility because the organization really needs the help. If the organization is looking for someone to run their social media, they're happy to have someone who can do that well and may be open to new ideas that you introduce. If you're looking to build your portfolio in website development or graphic design, content writing, volunteer services to an organization that seems to need some assistance in those areas. In a 2016 Deloitte Impact Survey, 92% of human resource executives agreed that contributing to a nonprofit can improve an employee's leadership skills. In that same survey, recruiter respondents reported that they see volunteer experience listed on only 30% of the resumes that they receive, while 82% said they would be more likely to choose a candidate with volunteer experience. So just to reiterate that, 82% of recruiters would like to see volunteer experience on their resume, but only 30% of applicants include this. Lastly, while you're volunteering, you can try on a new job before committing to a career in that field. You may find that what you thought you were going to really enjoy doing isn't so satisfying or fun after all, or you may discover something you had never thought about that you really love and motivates you. Volunteering is also a great low-pressure way to network. If you're new to an area or are looking for connections, volunteering is great. You will become more involved in your community and meet people that you might never have known otherwise, building a web of connections. When someone volunteers for an organization, they usually care about the mission of the organization. If you are also volunteering at the same organization, you will already have something in common. This makes it easy to strike up a conversation that has nothing to do with work, but instead it lets you make a sincere connection with your fellow volunteers. When participating in a beach cleanup or walking dogs at your local shelter, you might be working alongside your next boss or coworker. This is especially true if you're introverted or really intimidated by networking. It takes that edge off where you don't have to go in and pitch yourself. You're just automatically already naturally have something in common with the people you're talking to. When I volunteered for a local conservation group, my team members had people from a variety of industries, including accounting, HR, education, entertainment. I am quite certain that I would not have met or connected with this particular group of people if I hadn't volunteered, nor would I have made the connection that I did with them, because I tend to be a little introverted. So it really, I can attest that it's a great way to network. And then if your volunteer interest shares a value with your target organization, that's just another great way that you can make a personal connection with the organization and show proof on your resume and your LinkedIn profile that you have something in common, you have a shared value. So if the organization you are interested in has posted online that they participated in a food drive or volunteered at a pet shelter, and that's something you also do, you can mention that and make that connection. Besides being good for your career, there are many physical and mental health benefits to be gained from volunteering. In a 2017 study by United Healthcare and Volunteer Match, it was concluded that 79% of adults who volunteered in the last 12 months experienced lower stress levels, and 88% reported higher self-esteem. When I organized a volunteer event recently, I had these statistics up on a screen, and participants were commenting that this really resonated with them because they've already felt more relaxed since they came into the room and started participating in the project. Becoming involved in doing something for someone else had energized them and let them let go of the personal issues that they were dealing with. We all know that job searching can be stressful, and so this might be a good way to help your career and reduce the stress. 94% of volunteers in this survey reported an enriched sense of purpose, and 88% reported learning valuable things about themselves. The physical and mental health benefits of focusing your energy on something other than your own personal worries can really be so valuable. Many of us think we don't have time to volunteer, but the truth is that most volunteer opportunities require a commitment of just 2 to 4 hours per week. Some organizations may want a commitment of several months if there's an intensive training program involved, and some are just one-time events such as park or beach cleanups, Habitat for Humanity builds, food distribution events, and so on. Most of the time you can pick your own hours within reason. And some volunteer opportunities are project-based where you're just doing them on your own, when it works for you on a flexible schedule. You will also find that organizations really do have a variety of volunteer needs that you may not have even thought of. If you love pets but are looking to hone your office skills, you may find that a pet rescue group locally is in need of an office manager or data entry specialist, or even someone to interview potential rescue families. These are ways that you can align your passion with your volunteer opportunity and develop those skills that'll translate into your next job. Now that I've got you all energized for volunteering, you're probably wondering, all right, well, how do I find all these great volunteering opportunities? There's a lot of ways. One is through your own personal connections. You're most likely already affiliated with a nonprofit organization who might be able to use your help. A few that come to mind that are pretty common are your church, your school, your child's school, the library you go to often, maybe a thrift store you shop at, or public spaces like parks and preserves that you may visit and use for fitness. Just think, does your child's school need some help maintaining their computers? Could your church use some assistance with social media? Does the park need somebody to clean up trash or monitor traffic? Think about experiences that you maybe are lacking, the skills you have or the skills you want to build. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but when you're reading these job descriptions, thinking about where do I have some holes? And then think about where you could make a difference in an organization and then build a case for yourself in that next phase of your career. I meet with a lot of people who say, you know, they're not super up to date on all of the technology that's out there, or they could use some practice in Microsoft Office or Google Suite. Volunteering to be an office assistant for one of these nonprofits is a great way that you can hone those skills and become an expert before you know it. And then if you're already volunteering somewhere, but what you're doing is not related to your future career, ask your volunteer manager, your supervisor, or someone else in the organization if there's somewhere else that you could volunteer, another place within the organization that might use those technical skills that you would like to build up. Since you're all here with us at FlexJobs, I imagine you are also interested in either volunteering online or searching online for a volunteer opportunity. There are lots of websites dedicated to connecting people with nonprofits that need help. They're generally set up similarly to job boards where you can search by keyword, location, type of work, industry. Volunteer Match and Idealist are common sites that you can search in this way. And both of them do have opportunities to search for remote opportunities. Many cities also have their own version of a hands-on site, which you can see up on the slide, where you can view a calendar of opportunities in your area. And this is a great way to find opportunities that are available when you are. Since it is a calendar view, you can look if you're free Wednesday afternoons or Tuesday mornings, Saturday afternoons. This is a great way to find the ones that are available when you are, and also let you explore some of the nonprofits you might not have known about. Another way to find opportunities is through social media, websites, newsletters, all of those different public relations and communication outlets that these nonprofits have. You may already be following some nonprofits on social media. If you're someone who likes to follow the local animal shelter to see all the cute puppies, or you could check in and see if they need some help. If you follow nature organizations because they have great photos, see if they might need some help in their education department or with their social media. Any nonprofit that you're interested in helping, just go to their website, and they almost always will have a button that says volunteer on their homepage. If you don't see that there, then click either the how to get involved or the about us link, and they will give you an opportunity to complete a form for volunteering or give you a phone number or email to contact. Now, we need to think about how we're going to include this volunteer experience on your resume. There's a few different areas where these experiences can be added. The skills section is near the top of your resume, and this is a good place to add some of those. Volunteering is a great place to develop soft skills like communication, teamwork, and leadership that can be so valuable. You may never have held a leadership position at your paid job so far, but when you're volunteering, oftentimes there's an opportunity to take on a little bit more of a leadership role. Hard skills or technical skills can also be developed through volunteering. Maybe you've recently completed an online course in coding, but you're being passed over for entry-level jobs. Volunteer your services to a nonprofit using those skills, and they may give you another chance. Depending upon the type of volunteer work you've done, you have some options as to where to include the experiences in the experience section of your resume. If your volunteer work was very closely related with the job you're applying to, you've committed quite a bit of time to it, and you've done it recently, you can add it to your experience section where it would fit chronologically, especially if this experience is more related to your future career than your job. So you may be a cashier, but your intended goal is something else. If what you're doing when you're volunteering is more related, then I would put volunteering on and your actual paid position. If what you did as a volunteer was not recent and would only loosely relate to your sought after job, sometimes you can add an additional experience section where you include those unpaid experiences with some bullet points. And then if what you did as a volunteer was a series of one-off events, you know, doing the park cleanups, food distribution events, and that type of thing, you can add a volunteer or community service section to your resume to highlight the fact that you have volunteered, and just list very briefly what you did and who it was with. Employers do like to see that you're giving back to the community, even if that experience is not related. You can also add your volunteer experience to your LinkedIn profile. Many nonprofits, especially ones that are nationwide or global, will have their own LinkedIn page that you can connect with your profile. So as you're typing in, you know, Special Olympics or Big Brothers and Big Sisters, it'll prompt you to click and select the main profile of that organization. Definitely do that, so that will connect you with that organization. And then you can add it in your experience section or in a volunteer experience section, bullet pointing what you've done. Another great way that you can feature your volunteerism on LinkedIn is to post a picture or flyer from an event that you participated in and tag the nonprofit. This will promote the nonprofit. It will may even result in the nonprofit sharing your post, which will give you a greater exposure, and it will show your network what is important to you. All right, so now we are going to just summarize what you need to do to make volunteering part of your job search strategy. First, you're going to evaluate the gaps in your skills and knowledge. And again, I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean taking a look at where you could, some skills that you might want to build on based on what you're seeing in job descriptions. And then identify organizations that you currently work with or would like to work with that maybe you could help. And then search for other organizations that are searching or that are looking for assistance. And then begin volunteering. There may be an orientation, there may be that you just show up one day, you may have to register in advance. All of that information should be on their website. And then add that experience to your resume and LinkedIn profile so that it is highlighted and future employers will see that. So as a reminder, a copy of the recording as well as resources presented today will be emailed within the next week. Be sure to check your spam folder just in case it winds up there. For even more tips, tricks, and resources, I recommend going to www.flexjobs.com/blog. This includes a vast amount of free articles, resources, webinars, and videos for members and non-members. So now let's open it up to questions. Please remember to type your questions into the Q&A area rather than the chat section. And feel free to give a thumbs up to anyone else's question you'd also like to have answered, so we know which questions are the most popular and which ones we should answer first. All right, hello there. Now it's time for our live question and answer session. Can somebody please let me know if you can hear me in the chat, please? Are you able to hear me? Yes, okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, so we do have a couple questions here in the Q&A section, and please remember to put them in here. The one that's getting the most votes right now is asking for a sample resume where we can see exactly how to add it on the experience and skills. We do have in the resources you'll receive at the conclusion of this and that are in the resources or handouts tab, we do have a link to our sample resumes. And in there, the link that says adding unpaid experience is the one that you would use that will show some of those volunteer opportunities listed there. So hopefully that is helpful. And then another question is, can we use volunteer experiences for job references? That's a great question. And so typically you will have a supervisor, either the one who's supervising your particular work and or the supervisor who is the volunteer coordinator, is sometimes what they're called. And yes, I think they are definitely appropriate to use as a reference. As with any other reference that you might use for a job, definitely ask the person first if they would feel comfortable being a reference. Make sure that they know the job that you're applying to, and give them a little insight into what parts of you would like them to talk about the most, in case somebody says, just tell me about Diane. You know, what would you like them to highlight? It's especially good if the project or what you were doing as a volunteer relates to that next job. But even if it doesn't, they can speak to, you know, your consistency in showing up on time, how you worked with other volunteers, how you worked with customers or clients that you interacted with. And so, yes, you definitely can do that. Let's see, we have another question that's asking how to identify a good volunteer experience versus when a site is just trying to take advantage of your free labor. So, and you're commenting that, you know, this one organization, they didn't provide any guidance when asking for support, receive random tasks that sometimes were complicated. This does happen, unfortunately, when you're volunteering sometimes. And I usually try to, you know, not assume that they're really trying to use you for free labor, but that many times a lot of the work is being done by volunteers or by one person, which is why they need a volunteer. And so they may give you random tasks. So it's important for you to go into a volunteer opportunity asking those questions. Like I said, a lot of them will have orientation where you can ask exactly what you're going to do, or you can be proactive and let the volunteer coordinator know what you are most interested in doing and seeing if there's opportunities for that. And then, you know, don't be afraid if they give you some tasks that you're not sure how to complete. You know, feel free to go to them and ask for more explanation. That might actually be an opportunity to take the initiative to maybe create a process or procedure booklet or handout for the next person who comes along that they might ask to do that. So I do think, you know, much like we talk about researching the company that you want to work for to make sure the culture and the, you know, just what it feels like to be there and the management is, you might want to do that same thing with your volunteer opportunities. Okay, so I think this was maybe a follow-up from the volunteer supervisors to be a reference. Again, you're going to need to, let's see, so you're saying if you put that so that they couldn't verify it. They probably, depending upon the size of the organization, they may have you in their database that you did volunteer there. So if you're just putting it down to list it and you're worried they're going to contact someone to verify that you volunteered there, you might want to just double check with the organization and see if they have those records. If you're talking about from a supervisory point of view, you can always use, and I do encourage, the personal contact of that supervisor. But again, asking them in advance and making sure you have accurate information. How would volunteering locally help you find a remote job nationally? I think in the same way as having a local job could help you get that next job. It's not going to give you the remote experience necessarily, although there are opportunities. You know, a lot of times you might have the team meeting virtually. You might be answering phone calls, maybe doing a virtual webinar for the organization. Even local, a lot of local nonprofits, I think, are still having their meetings online and maybe producing webinars. So that would give you an opportunity. And if the alternative is that you're not doing anything, so if you're in a career break or something like that, having this local volunteer experience on there, again, shows that you're staying fresh. You might be keeping up with technology or trends in an industry that you're particularly interested in. And again, that network, just because you're local doesn't mean that the people you might be volunteering with may be working remotely and have some connections to remote opportunities. All right, I think I'm going to be able to answer another one. This is it's not actually a question, but it's a really great comment that this person did exactly what I've suggested. She went out, she got approved as a volunteer, had some hesitancy, I think, as a lot of us might, whether we have a disability or not. And she's able to volunteer 8 hours a week, socializing. And this is going to be excellent experience. Sometimes it's hard to get animal handling experience, and this is exactly the way to do it. This is a way to break into a new industry or a new role. I really appreciate you sharing that, Karen, because that's exactly, it seems daunting and you might be skeptical that, you know, volunteering and giving up time when you have so much going on in your life, when you're trying to job search and it takes so much time. But this is a really great example of how that can help you make that transition. We are at time, so I'm going to thank you for coming. I do want you to know that we timed this because this Sunday is one of the 2 national days of service that we have here in the States. So if you're energized and you want to find something, this might be a good weekend that some local organizations might be capitalizing on that National Day of Service. So definitely check out for things that are happening in your area. And then we are having a FlexJobs virtual career fair for members on September 22nd. So not next week, but the next week. You can see the link in the chat and the Q&A to register for that. And then next week, we actually are going to have we have our typical Wednesday coaches Q&A. Next week on Wednesday, it's going to focus on preparing for that job fair. So I definitely recommend you get registered for both of those and attend. And on the link for the virtual job fair, you can see the organizations that are coming and some of the jobs they might be hiring for. Again, this is a semi-low pressure way to get in front of some hiring managers and recruiters, whether that's virtually, chat or video, and give you the opportunity to really prove why you're the right person for that roll that way. So thank you for joining today. A link to today's webinar and a list of the resources we talked about will be shared in an email to you within the week. If you'd like more support, we do offer one-on-one coaching sessions and support services with our career coaching team, helping with resumes and mock interviews also. And be sure to join us every Wednesday for career coaching Q&A. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care.